Alright, how we doing, everybody? It is Monday the 4th. I'm just getting around to doing my solo review for a couple of reasons. First, I was out of town and I went to Origins, and Destiny Roar is doing very well game-wise. And I was also, as part of the whole internet group that boycotted Solo for opening weekend. And so I did not see it opening weekend anyway. But now, of course, it's been a week later, and again, I just got back. So I kind of want to talk about what kind of led us to this point, because now a week later, all the numbers for Solo are in, and it is losing its butt financially. So let's talk about, you know, what happened and why that is. And I'm sure if you've heard some other stuff on the internet, you already know. But first, you know, there was all the problems on set, which I don't know if that really affected the financial side of it, although it did affect the financial budget. So if you don't know what happened, Kathleen Kennedy, who, you know, Kevin Feige, he is the head of Marvel. So he does everything with Marvel. He has all of the movies set up. He knows exactly what he's doing from one movie to the next, and has built this thing for, you know, decades now. It's been, what, over 10 years. And you can see even from Iron Man that he had this, you know, growth planned out all the way through. So Star Wars is helmed by Kathleen Kennedy, who worked for both Lucas and Steven Spielberg for years and years and years. So she does not obviously have a handle on what she's doing from one point to another. So with but let's not get into Kathleen Kennedy just yet, but let's talk about what she did for this movie. So she first hired the two directors from the Lego movie, which is odd to begin with. So, but she hired Lawrence Kasdan, who wrote Empire, obviously, you know, in my opinion, the best Star Wars film there is, and, you know, he did other big films as well, like Big Chill and a pile of others. So he goes to the set and sees the dailies, and his script is not being shot. So he goes to the set, he talks to the directors and says, what's going on? You're not shooting my script. And again, this is all from the stuff I've read in the past. I wasn't physically there. So if anything's incorrect, it's only from the hearsay that I got it from. But anyway, so he goes there and says, what's going on? You're not shooting my script. And he goes, yeah, we're trying to do a comedy, so your script doesn't really work for what you're doing, so we're kind of improvising everything. So he kind of gets pissed, and he goes to Kathleen Kennedy and says, these guys aren't shooting my script. What are we going to do about it? And she says, well, let's just let it go for a while and see what happens. So nothing changes, and he gets pissed further, and I guess complains to people above her or whatever, or she finally changes her mind and fires them. Unfortunately, the film is pretty much already shot by that point. So then they bring in Ron Howard, who obviously has a long-standing relationship with Lucas. He did Willow with Lucas. And then on top of that, you know, he was in American Graffiti, which one of the, you know, the early films that that Lucas shot before Star Wars. So he has a long-standing relationship with Lucas, and, you know, his vision. So, and I can tell from the film. But anyway, so he's brought in to do reshoots, except he reshoots the entire movie. So now, instead of a $150 million budget for Solo, now it's at $250 million. So Kathleen Kennedy is going, well, it should be no big deal. Rogue One did $1 billion. We'll do $1 billion. We won't make a whole lot of money, you know, because the rule of thumb is 2.3, you know, just generally 3 times the budget is kind of what you need to break even. So she needs close to $1 billion to break even. So he says, we won't make a lot of money, but, you know, we'll make something, or at least break even. Except that opening weekend, there was a boycott. And it wasn't a boycott really on Solo, it was a boycott really on Last Jedi. So there was so much bad press for the fans, as far as social media, etc., that the fans were not happy with Last Jedi, about how Luke was treated, how the story was treated, how Rey was like a Mary Jane, meaning that she didn't even have a training, but she could do anything in existence without any character development. So all these things pissed them off, and then Rian Johnson and Kathleen Kennedy went on record in a quote saying, "We're not making films for fans. We don't care what the fans want. We're making films for ourselves." So everybody kind of went into a rant saying, well, why are we giving these people money when they don't care about us? So everybody decided to boycott Solo, no matter how good it was, for opening weekend at the very least. And a lot of people were saying they're not even going to see another Star Wars movie until Kathleen Kennedy is gone. Of course, if you look up pictures of Kathleen Kennedy, you'll see her wearing shirts with other women saying Star Wars is female or Star Wars is feminine. So a lot of people are saying, well, since when did Star Wars get an agenda? Star Wars was already had a lot of minorities in it and created some of the strongest female characters without, kind of pushing the envelope where it's in our face. And I think that's part of the problem is, there's a lot of political stuff in it that's kind of in your face, especially in Last Jedi. So now the film is tanking, and I'm sure that she has got called into the office and said, "You got problems. You pissed everybody off, and now we're going to lose $100 million on this film. Plus, we have stuff opening in the parks, and what are we going to do if you piss everybody off and nobody shows up and our numbers drop, etc." Other people are saying that the contribution, of course, is the fact that there's too much Star Wars out there. So, Last Jedi and now Star Wars just came out, 6-7 months ago, and we have another film. Which I'm sure, this attrition is probably to that as well. But, Disney's trying to use the Marvel Universe in here where they're saying, well, Marvel does, Black Panther, and then 6 months later we had Infinity War. But we have a continuing story with that, and Marvel Universe is all these different genres, like Sorcerer Supreme and Doctor Strange. And then we had, Ant-Man and the Wasp was coming up, which is a totally different genre again. And then we have space, which is, Guardians of the Galaxy. So it's not just a superhero type of situation. They're all a little bit different. Where Star Wars is the same. It's the fighting of the Empire, blah, 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 that kind of thing. But anyway, with all that being said, I went into Solo with kind of a low expectations, especially after I heard that the main actor couldn't act and he had to go back to either Ron Howard or the guys from Lego Movie had to go back to acting school because they weren't happy with his performances. Anyway, I went in there with very low expectations, and I gotta say, I really, really like Solo. So all of these things that happened, where this ended up being the one with the target on its back, it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate because I think that Ron Howard did a really good job of picking up the pieces. He understands the characters. It felt like Star Wars to me. But at the same token, it got sniped for a bunch of different reasons. So we won't see a sequel to this, which is really, really unfortunate because it set up such a great story for after this film that I really wanted to see what would happen after this film, and we're never going to know. And unless they pick it up into a different film, but then again, Solo won't be, Han Solo won't be the main character. So I don't know. I don't think we're going to see a sequel, which is upsetting because I really liked how this thing was whole set up. So without going into spoilers, it felt like the first 15 minutes, and I'm not the only one who said this, it felt like the first 15 minutes had a different directorial style. I don't know for a fact if Ron Howard did do the first 15 minutes or not, but I can tell you this, that the first 15 minutes, I wasn't really happy with the film. When they get to the heist portion of it, I was all in. I was all in. I was intrigued. I was gripped. I I thought I started seeing the main actor Alden Ehrenreich as Han Solo. I liked it. I recommended I actually recommend the film. If you can get past the first 15 minutes, you're all good. So it's almost like going and binge watching a TV show, and if somebody says to you, if you get past the first 2 episodes, it is great. It's just kind of the same thing. If you get past the first 15 minutes, then it really opens up as a film. But Solo still has its problems. It's definitely not a perfect film in any way, shape, or form. And I think the biggest problem with it is it didn't need to be an origin story. So, like, we don't need to see a Batman origin story again. We don't need to see a Spider-Man origin story again. There was no Thor origin movie. It didn't need to be. How he got the hammer was irrelevant. And, you know, the only ones that I can see that you kind of need an origin story for was maybe Hulk and Captain America. But Han Solo, did you really need an origin story for a Han Solo? No. You know, the problem is that we already know how he got the ship. We know, you know, how he and Chewie met. We don't know the specifics of it, but we didn't need to. Our imagination already filled in all these things. You know, the Kessel Run, all that stuff we already knew. And we already had, for the fans who grew up with this for decades, already had this picture in their head. And their imagination is going to do far more than anything you're going to be able to see on screen. So I think that was a mistake. So most of the origin story is in that first 15 minutes. And I think that's why the movie picks up after that. So, and of course, you know, as you already know, you know, his introduction to Lando and him getting the ship. I think that all they had to do was just make it a Han Solo adventure. He and Chewie were already together. They already had the ship, and they could have made it a Han Solo adventure, and yet he would have had far less problems with the fans picking on it if they had just done that. Because again, you didn't need it. You didn't need any of it. It was superfluous. You know, people said that there really wasn't a villain in this film. It didn't need it. I think that the twists and turns that they had, especially towards the end, it wasn't a film about a good guy versus a bad guy. It was about a film about self-discovery. It was Han finding his place in the galaxy. You know, what was his life going to be? And that's really what the story was about. So everything else was just pieces for this arc. And the arc, I think the arc worked for him. It was good. So I think that's the major problem, was that they pushed it into being an origin story, which they didn't need to do. The second problem is Emilia Clarke, who did a great job. Okay, she's always good. She's always engaging. I don't think that her and Alden had a lot of chemistry. Like sometimes, like leading men and leading women, they have so much chemistry and tension and stuff like that, that, you know, they don't need to say anything. And like in Indiana Jones, like Raiders of the Lost Ark, there was chemistry there. It's definitely more than there was in the second one with India, which I'll remember in a second. But anyway, so the chemistry wasn't there between them like it should have been. I think they should have done a screen test or whatever else to see if that was going to work, because it could have been better. She did a great job, and towards the end anyway, it may or may not have even mattered. But Donald Glover, great job as Lando. He really, really captured Lando, for me anyway. Again, this is all my opinion. But there were some scenes in there where it was really good. It was really good. I know a lot of people complained about the robot, L3. And yeah, a bit annoying. A bit annoying. But there was some funny stuff in there too. So kind of the good and the bad situation. I think that was one of the things that, you know, Kathleen Kennedy, you know, had in there. I think that was one of the, I don't know for a fact, but it seems like that whole agenda thing that I was talking about. Thandie Newton, great job. Woody Harrelson, all great. And Paul Bettany as the villain. So with Paul Bettany, as you saw in the trailer, he's got these scratches down his face, stuff like that. I would have done something a little different with that. It was never even told why he had these scratches. But I had a couple of problems with the wardrobe. Like Paul Bettany's character, the wardrobe that they put him in, it wasn't very good. And then Emilia Clarke, she had a couple of different costumes, but she had this white jacket that really worked, and then she had, I guess she borrowed one of Lando's capes, and it was red, and that really worked. But then she had these bell bottoms on, these bell bottom pant dress, whatever you want to call it, flowy pants. I would have rather seen her in like this, the Princess Leia boots and stuff like that, a little bit more warrior-ish. I don't think that the flowy pants thing really worked in it. But anyway, now I'm just nitpicking, about costumes. But there's all the stuff that's in the Falcon, and with them being chased and stuff like that. I just saw in the trailer when you see it actually on the screen, and then they're playing the Star Wars music and everything else. It's really, really good. It felt like Star Wars for me, and I embraced Alden Ehrenreich. After a little while, I already started seeing him as Han Solo. So he does get over that hump. So anyway, again, I recommend seeing it. I recommend seeing the film. It's already going to lose money, so if you're if you're on the thing about I don't want to see it because Kathleen Kennedy, I really want her gone. It's already the effect has already happened, so there's no reason to boycott it any further. So just go and see it, enjoy it, stuff like that. But I'm going to get into spoilers real quick now, and we'll kind of talk about the story. So if you haven't seen the film, stop watching it now and go see it. All right? And I'll be back in a second. Hey, spoilers for Solo. So again, let's get into the first 15 minutes, the plot line. We'll go through the plot lines and things like that as well. So the first 15 minutes, somebody called it Oliver Twist. He's not that he is Oliver Twist, and I can see that. Again, the beginning just didn't need to be there. So he's working as getting stuff for this bigger villain where everybody had a quota. And they have kids working for him and stuff like that. And ends up being a big worm. So he's got this girlfriend who's Emilia Clarke, who's Kira with a Q. So when you hear it, it's easy to hear, but when you see it, you're like, what is that? Q-Y-R-A with an apostrophe in the middle. So anyway, so they escape, but they don't get very far, and they have this chase scene in this car. And I gotta say, this is why I don't think that Ron Howard directed this thing, because the directing from Rush with the cars was awesome, and this car chase, not so much. So if he did direct it, I don't know what he did differently, but it wasn't very exciting. So anyway, he gets, I don't know if you guys agree with me or not, but so they get stuck and they have to run, and they get to the gate and he gets through and she doesn't. Okay, so now they're split up. And in his mind, he spends the rest of the years that he's gone. I'm not sure how long ago it was 3 years, something like that. But then it does follow canon, which I was happy about, that he was a stormtrooper to begin with, although I really wanted to see him in this whole stormtrooper thing instead of being in this war that they were in. But that's where he meets Woody Harrelson and Thandie Newton and Jon Favreau's character, which is a computer-generated character with multiple arms, named Rio. So he pushes himself into being joined by them. They don't want him, and he wants to be joined and to join this thing because he wants to get out of this war, and he wants to be a pilot, and he sees all these things that he could get with them. So great. All right, so then they betray him, and he gets thrown in the pit with the Beast. So the Beast ends up being Chewie, and that's where he first meets Chewie, which I was okay with. I was okay with all that. And he actually speaks a little bit of Wookiee, which I thought was kind of cool. But they should have put a line there going, well, it really hurts my throat, so can I just speak English, and I'll just, you know, you can speak Wookiee, and we'll just meet in the middle. But anyway, it was cool that he did voice some of it, even though obviously Chewie understood English, so it was irrelevant. But anyways, that's when they first meet, which again is canon, that he helps him escape, and so Chewie kind of owes him a life debt. So it kind of it mixed with canon, and then of course they go off onto this heist for the train heist, which in my opinion that was the best scene in the whole film. Unfortunately, Thandie Newton got killed. I would have liked to see more of her. She had a really good character, and they killed her off pretty quick. And at the same token, L3, who was annoying, she got killed out pretty quick too. So you don't have to worry about her too long. So of course now they go see Lando because they lose the stuff from the heist. Because Enfys Nest, the whole mountain gets blown up because they lose the power sources and everything gets exploded. So now they have to go back to the main guy, which is Paul Bettany's character, and Drayden Voss, and says, "Oh, we lost everything, so let's go find something else and we'll replace it." And he's not too happy about that, but he lets them do it, and of course he sends his attaché to, which is Emilia Clarke, Kira's part. So they go off to do this thing, and they go off to Kessel. So here's where the Kessel Run thing comes in. Except that he does the whole parsec thing from the original series. He says, "Oh, I did the Kessel Run in 12 parsecs." It's actually the ship who did the Kessel Run in 12 parsecs. Well, parsec is not a time; it's a distance. So the only way to fix that is to have less distance. So the Kessel Run was this big cloud, as you saw, that had just this one tunnel in it. And if you went outside of the tunnel into the cloud, there was obviously rocks, and which I don't know why they didn't gravitate inside the tunnel portion, but they didn't. And of course there was big monsters, and there's the thing called a maw, which is like a black hole, etc. So by him cutting it off, now they lowered the amount of space, which made the Kessel Run less parsecs, and that's how that works, in case you're wondering. So anyway, so that's what happens there, and of course he also gets betrayed by everybody. But the ending was so great, that he knew he was going to get betrayed. So he sets up Woody Harrelson's character, who's setting him up. So he's double betraying. So Woody Harrelson thinks he's going to turn the tables on him, and then of course Han turns the tables on him instead. I thought that was all great. I liked how it was smart, and Kira really didn't betray him. She saved him at the end, right? So she killed her boss. And saw an opportunity there, I think, because she's like, okay, well, Woody Harrelson's going to get killed, so I have now an opportunity to kind of step up my game. And I think she had feelings for Han, but nowhere ever was she going to leave the Crimson Dawn. And I think she just wanted to get more power in there, which is kind of great. We don't know too much about her, and that's why I said earlier in the conversation was the fact that we're not going to see anything else with the numbers that Solo did. So we're never going to see a sequel, never going to see what happens. But the fact that that Darth Maul showed up at the end, and canon-wise, where he actually had the robotic legs. So if anybody's watched Clone Wars or Rebels on the cartoon side, well, first of all, you got in an Attack of the Clones, but Phantom Menace, he got cut in half, which he should never have survived, but he does, and they give him like spider legs, robotic spider legs. And then from there he has robotic legs that are like bent backwards like the legs of a dog. And then from there he gets regular robotic legs. And that's what he had at the end of Solo, which is great, because that's all canon. It fits in perfectly. And he's got the new lightsaber. Oh, it's just awesome. And I kind of really want to see where that goes. We're not going to see it. And then at the end, he sees, Lando again. And Lando's all buddy-buddy. And he gets to see the little thing in the arm that pulled the... He knew he cheated. He just didn't know how. But when he saw that, I thought originally that he had taken the whole loader off his wrist. And I'm like, oh, he doesn't know it's not there this whole game. But he didn't. Instead, he only took the card out. That was great, because he wouldn't feel the card missing until he needed it. So, great stuff. Of course, he also should have brought up, well, you didn't give me your ship last time, so you're not going to take my ship. But of course, they needed him to get the ship at the end. Having Chewie as the co-pilot, even before that, where he says, oh, I need you to do this, and Emilia Clarke's character's like, well, yeah, sure you do. I don't know how to do it. And he starts flipping buttons and everything else. That was all great. My only thing, too, is, so on Kessel, he sees the other Wookiees there, right? And he goes to save his friends. But they don't look like Wookiees. They look like Cro-Magnon men. I don't know, they had, like, Planet of the Apes-looking faces. I thought that was kind of weird, right? I don't know, does anybody agree with me there? I don't know, but that was kind of strange to me. I don't understand that. But anyway, so much good stuff in there. Again, the whole battle with the deaths of the Star Destroyer coming into the Kessel Run. Again, the Kessel Run is not what I imagined, which is why it shouldn't have been an origin story, but that was all great. And then all the stuff with the TIE Fighter, and then using the music from the chase through the asteroid belt from Empire. All good stuff. All good stuff. Anyway, I really enjoyed the film, and I know some people didn't, but I enjoyed it, and I'm kind of sad that I'm not going to see a sequel to it. But unfortunately, Kathleen Kennedy needs to fix her house. And everybody's talking about Dave Filoni coming in and kind of being her lieutenant, so she can maybe stay off the creative side. But Dave Filoni, if you don't know who that is, he does all the cartoons. So he does. He did produce Clone Wars for years and years, and then he did Rebels. And of course, I enjoy all of that, and I think the stories are very, very good, and he really, really cares about the characters. And I think Ron Howard did too. I really think that he had a very good grasp of what Star Wars was and the characters were, and I really think they should get him to do Episode 9. In fact, he even went and said, I bought a magazine that was dedicated to Solo, and he even said he didn't want to step on their toes, on the guys from Lego, the Lego movie, Miller and whatever. And he said Star Wars was not the place to do experiments. And how true is that? I don't see why people don't get that. You're already playing in a sandbox that's not yours. It's already a pre-made sandbox, and just go with the flow. So anyway, that's my review of Solo. I recommend it, and I would say, for me, it was an 8 out of 10. I liked it, had problems. You may or may not agree with me, but I'd watch it again. I already went and saw it for a second time, and I'd actually watch it again. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed it too. If not, then let me know in the back in the comments what you think. And subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys soon.